views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to Grassroots Advocacy Radio, where your host, Marsha Padilla-Goad, will leave you feeling empowered, aware, and knowledgeable of what may be impacting your lives and communities politically, but without taking a political position. Get ready, really understand and discover the power you hold as a voter and how you can use your voice to educate lawmakers and influence pending legislation. Grassroots Advocacy Radio is a space for conversations that will educate, empower, influence, and engage listeners, no matter what you may be for or against, or even of a particular political party affiliation. Now is your time to find your voice and share it with others. And now, here is your host, Marsha.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marsha Padilla-Goad, and you are listening to Grassroots Advocacy Radio on Transformation Talk Radio. It's midterm election day in our nation. Polls have been open for several hours, and Americans have been casting their votes for the candidates that they want representing them in the United States Congress and at the state and local levels. Today, Americans will decide on 435 seats in the United States House of Representatives, 35 seats in the United States Senate, and 39 state and territorial governorships with various other state and local races. But all eyes are on younger Americans, and many are wondering if they will show up in large numbers to the polls and carry these elections. Studies show that young Americans between the ages of 18 to 29 years old have historically had sharply lower turnout rates than older adults in midterm elections. But recent polls suggests turnout among millennials and Generation Z voters could be historically high for a number of reasons, which we will discuss throughout today's show. So joining me for the first segment of our show today is Ms. Tabitha St. Bernard Jacobs. Tabitha is an organizer. She is one of the women who spearheaded the organization of Women's March on Washington. And she now serves as the youth director of Youth Empower, which is the youth arm of Women's March. Tabitha, welcome to Grassroots Advocacy Radio.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Tabitha, first I would like to thank you and your colleagues for your nonpartisan efforts to engage younger voters in the political process. Can you tell us briefly about the vision of Youth Empower?
So Youth Empower is, as you mentioned before, the youth arm of Women's March. It was founded around the same time as the Women's March in Washington. And we're led by about 15 young people between the ages of 15 and 25. I am one of the few adults that are involved in the team. We've done several things since we launched. We actually released a toolkit that teaches young people how to organize within their schools and also their communities. And this was a partnership between Teen Vogue, Rock the Vote, Rise to Run, wow, Peace First, and a couple other organizations. We also have over 100 chapters in high schools and colleges all over the country. And we have led several historic actions, including a very historic school walkout after the Parkland shooting that saw 1.6 million students walk out of schools to really demand sensible gun regulations. And our goal is really for our young people to realize their power and to get the tools they need to really realize that they can make real change in this entire country.
Wow, that's excellent. I remember the school walkout. I have 2 teenage daughters, and they really felt empowered by participating in that. So thank you very much for your work. Now, do you agree that 2018 could set a record high for young voter participation?
Oh, definitely. We're already seeing record early voting from young people in Georgia and Florida, and really and truly all over the country. This morning, starting at 10 a.m. in time zones all over the country, there is a coalition of youth-led organizations, which we are a part of. And the organization is called Future Coalition, and they are walking out of schools all day today to go to the polls. So we're seeing young people saying to us adults, like, we're not going to wait on you guys anymore to make these choices for us. We're taking the power in our own hands, and we're actually going to make change.
That's awesome, and that kind of went right into what my next question for you was going to be, because I think more than ever, we're seeing young Americans are showing us that they are ready to just stand up and be heard. And we've seen a whole wave of youth activism, especially this year with, around gun control, the gun control issue, because of the number of shootings that have occurred in our public schools throughout the nation. So as you work with younger voters, what are some of the other concerns that they are expressing as to why this election is so important to them?
I can tell you they're also concerned about immigration. Our co-president, Sarah Mora, she is a dreamer. She has been in this country her entire life. This is the only country she knows to be her home, and she is always in a state of really not being sure of really her future in this country. And that's something that young people will be voting on. They'll be voting for their peers who cannot vote. There's an initiative called the Love Vote, where young people who aren't able to vote because of their status or because of their age, they're reaching out to their peers and also to their loved ones and asking them to vote on their behalf. And we're seeing people really invigorated to vote for young people that don't have voices for themselves. And really and truly, we're seeing even people who aren't able to vote, they're using their voices, they're using their platforms on social media, they're getting out there, they're canvassing, that all reaches really and truly a culmination of what this day is really about. So we're really excited to see the results of today.
That's awesome. Both parties, the Democratic and the Republican parties, have been engaged in get out the vote efforts for several months now. In fact, I think, it's probably a little bit more aggressive, I think, than I've ever. And I've been in this for a long time. Let's not map my age, but there are still people out there who are going to sit it out. And, it doesn't matter who you're for, who you're against. Exercising your rights as a citizen is something that, we stress. For me as a grassroots advocate, I can't imagine not having my voice heard by casting my vote. And so there are 15 states plus the District of Columbia have election day registration policies in place. So this means that anyone who is not registered to vote as of today, as of right now, can still get to the polls, register, and cast their vote for a candidate. For those not familiar with those states, they are California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Minnesota, Montana, New Hampshire, Utah, Vermont, Wisconsin, Wyoming, plus the District of Columbia. And the state of Washington will actually implement their election day registration policy in 2019. Tabitha, do you have a message for anyone who hasn't made up their minds yet that they are going to vote today, especially people residing in those 15 states I mentioned?
If you haven't made it out to the polls, if you don't have a plan to vote, know that politics is something that really affects every single person that lives in this country, whether we choose to use our voices or not. And it's really a loss if you have the opportunity to get out and vote and to have a say in the type of country you want this country to be, in the type of leaders you want to really be leading our country. If you're not using that power that's really a loss for you because you are taking away your own voice. And there's still time for you to get out to vote. I mean, it's 3:13 here in the city, here in Brooklyn, and our polls close at 9 p.m. There's still ample time for people to get on and vote. If you don't have a voting plan, the weather is awful outside. There are tons of organizations that are offering rides to the polls. Get online and find a way to get to the polls. You do not give up your power. Do not give up the power of your voice in this moment, because we are all going to be living with the results of these elections for a very long time.
Yes. Absolutely. So I know, Tabitha, I know sometimes it's challenging to keep constituents engaged, energized, especially after a big event. How does Youth Empower plan to keep youth engaged in advocacy leading into 2020 presidential election and beyond?
Well, I can tell you that right after the walkout, we really hit the ground running. We formed a toolkit where young people can learn how to organize chapters, how to form chapters in their high schools and colleges. And as I mentioned, right now we have over 100 chapters in high schools and colleges, and we provide training and a lot of support for them in learning how to organize and how to be better leaders within their own communities. So that is going to be ongoing. We also formed the Empower Coalition, which was formed back in spring of this year with the goal of helping empower youth to vote. That is a group of over 100 youth groups and organizations like Peace First, Do Something, Rock the Vote, 18 by 18, so many large organizations and also small youth groups that were formed after the walkout are part of this coalition. And we have been working on what it's going to look like as we lead into 2020. And that work is also youth-led by a team of young people within the coalition. So we continue to organize, we continue to mobilize, and it's so very important after the election that we hold our elected officials accountable for the promises that they have made to us. So that work will continue on, and we will continue to support our young people in doing just that, and to really realize that they have the power. They're not waiting on us adults to tell them what to do. They're taking that power within themselves, and we're just here to empower them and to give them the tools that they need.
That's beautiful. You know, Tabitha, before we wrap up this segment, I want you to know that when I read your bio, I was absolutely stunned and loved learning that you are originally from Trinidad and Tobago, hence the beautiful accent. And I am also a Trinidadian American. And so the work you're doing is highly important for me as well. And I like the fact that you think globally. And so Trinidad recently experienced tremendous amounts of flooding. And I know that you and your colleagues have decided to get together and organize an effort to help replenish school supplies and other necessities that were lost or damaged in those floods. Do you want to tell our audience quickly about that effort?
Yeah, so Trinidad is a country that is, I grew up in Trinidad. I moved to this country when I was 19. So my roots are in Trinidad. It's a very integral part of who I am. And recently there were record-breaking floods in Trinidad, and many people are without houses, without resources, without what they need to really live from day to day. And my friends, two friends of mine, Hakim and also Denzel, we live and work in this country right now, and we've been very fortunate to be in positions where we are comfortable in our careers and in our lives. And we wanted to really help support students and teachers that are trying to pick up the pieces after the floods, and will be working towards very important exams in 2019 that will really be integral to helping define the future of these children. So we have started a fundraiser to raise funds to really support the schools, especially as the floods are getting out of the news cycle. We want to continue to really try to support these young people who need our help. So if you could possibly donate anything to this cause, the website is bit.ly/Trini Flood Relief. So again, bit.ly/Trini Flood relief. And every little bit helps. Anything you're able to give, you can rest assured we will make sure that it gets into the hands of teachers and students in Trinidad.
That's great. And that information will also be available on our radio show profile where you can access that link. Tabitha, I want to thank you for your time and for the fantastic work that you and your colleagues are doing. You are listening to Grassroots Advocacy Radio with Marsha Padilla-Goad. We're going on a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue our Election Day conversations with Miss Melanie Campbell, President of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Gifted intuitive healer and spiritual teacher Sarah Luce brings her unique style to the hit show Small Steps, Big Breakthrough Radio on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in each month as Sarah turns reality on end and shows us how to experience expansive results with simple yet powerful steps. Expect an enlightening bend on what you currently believe is possible. For show details and upcoming topics, visit sarahluce.com. That's SARALOOS.com.
Introducing New Soul Science, an introductory course with Ruby Betty, offering profound wisdom alongside radically simple concepts and techniques that collapse time, allowing instantaneous personal transformation. The foundational techniques of this introductory course reveal the profound inner ability each human has to access and fulfill their individual soul script or soul promise. Awakening this ability leads to the mastery of one's destiny. The concepts are totally original, immensely powerful, and completely revolutionary. They ignite an infinite fire within each listener, fueling one's ability to live out their unique soul promise. Are you ready to become more aware and access amazing personal transformation? This course is available now at rubybetty.co.
Dream on, fly high, and live adventurously on The Laura Meeks Show. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio. As host, Laura Meeks guides you in finding your unique gifts and bringing them to life. As a certified life coach, speaker, and veteran bomber pilot for the U.S. Air Force, Laura knows how to follow a dream. She is ready to support you so you can dream on, fly high, and live adventurously. For more information on Laura and her work, visit flyhighliving.com.
Are you ready to embrace your essence and the magic of who you are? Let me, Emily Perkins, hold your hand and walk with you as we go treasure hunting for the gold that lies within you. Tune in to Love Living Radio every second and fourth Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit LoveLivingHolistics.com.
We're back on Grassroots Advocacy Radio. I'm your host, Marsha Padilla-Goad. Joining us this segment is Miss Melanie Campbell, President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Melanie, welcome to Grassroots Advocacy Radio.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who are not familiar with your organization, who is the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation?
Okay, well, the National Coalition has been around for 42 years. It's a civil rights and social justice organization. And we are a coalition of organizations, but we also have affiliates in several states. Our mission is to increase Black civic engagement and participation and leverage the power of our vote so that our issues are addressed in our community. We have three kind of signature programs that are networks that we use to promote Black women and girls, called the Black Women's Roundtable.
Yes.
The other one that is focused on millennials and what we now, Gen Z, right? It's called Black Youth Vote, and that's youth-led.
Yes.
That we started. And then the other is like this broad overall unity campaign that we do for national efforts. So every midterm and presidential, we bring everything under one umbrella to focus in on the Black vote with a priority around Black women, millennials, young people, returning citizens as our priority focus with and we have a big footprint in the South. Where most of the states are that we have networks and affiliates. And so the South is a big priority. Not that the rest of the country is not, but it is 55% of Black people live in the South, in that, and growing. So we have a priority there. So I'll stop there. So that's kind of like the broad brush of what we're about. And then the other is like, so we do presidential elections, midterm elections. We work on elections year round, but we put this big campaign together for national campaigns. And then when things like the census are coming up, we build a broader table that is made up of African Americans and Black and Latino immigrant communities to work on the census to try to make sure we get the best count that we have. And we call that the Unity Diaspora Coalition. And so that's kind of like the programmatic structure.
Wow, that's excellent. I, as you were talking about the work that you're doing with women and girls, 2018, these elections are set to be record-breaking for women in general. 257 women one-party nominations to be on the ballots today. Additionally, among them are several women who are poised to make history due to their race, religious beliefs, and sexual orientation. Among those making history, Stacey Abrams in Georgia will as poised to become the first Black nominee for governor, and she would actually be the first African-American woman to lead any state. In Vermont, we have Christine Hallquist, who would be the first transgender candidate to be nominated for governor, who was nominated to be governor by a major party. And then we have Rashida Tlaib of Michigan and Lahan Omar of Minnesota, who would be the first Muslim American women in Congress. Why do you think we're seeing these record-breaking numbers of women engaged, and especially Black women?
Well, as a woman and also a woman of color, a Black woman, we just know it's our time. It's really stepping into our power. We have been really focused over the last few years of really leveraging that in a more significant way as Black women. So it didn't just start because Donald Trump got elected. It's really been building that for a number of years and really being intentional. I work with a network of really awesome sisters, who work every day, year in and year out, and getting to a place where what do we do with that vote? What do we do with it? And Black women are leading, raising money, doing this work, but not being able to leverage that for the in a way that compares to being the number one progressive voter. And so that's been kind of going on for a while. But I did want to tell you this, like a personal note. And Stacey Abrams was my intern when she was at Spelman.
Nice.
So I've known her since she was a student in the early 90s. And she's always been an awesome, very, very, of course, smart, but just awesome, dedicated. As long as I've known her, she's been dedicated to service and really being out there. So it's just been awesome on a personal note to see her thrive. And then Andrew Gillum down in Georgia, in Florida, even he was a Black Youth Vote alum of ours. So just to see this next generation of young leaders step into the political process, especially Black women, has been really, really something to see. And so we're just gonna. I'm nonpartisan, so I can't push for people to vote for or against, but it's good on a personal note to see them step into their leadership to another level.
Yeah. Wow. And specifically for this midterm election, how critical is the presence and involvement of African American women in this election?
Well, when it comes to getting the black vote out, if you want to have a black vote that's significant, you got to get black women. Not just for us to show up ourselves, but I have a term I always say, the secret sauce to the black vote is to follow black women. Because when we get engaged, we take our families, our friends, our loved ones to vote. We get involved. We in a way that's really significant. We were the number one. We wrote historic numbers when President Obama ran, but we also, after that, even in 2016, we voted 94% for Hillary Clinton. We were trying to tell America something's wrong. But, it did what it did. And then you look at 2017 in Alabama and Virginia and New Jersey and other places. And so when we say that vote is important, if you talk about the black vote, we carry that. And so that's why we've been doing this whole Power the Sister Vote campaign as a part of our unity efforts to really elevate that message in a real way, and also leverage that with policymakers and others. And we've been doing that not just this year, but we've been doing that for a number of years now. Doing more research on black women to help leverage the work that we do, so we have an ability to not just anecdotally think we know what black women want. We do, like this year, for instance, during presidential years and midterms, we do an exit poll. So we'll have some research that will tell us a little more about what black women were thinking and what made them go and what their concerns were, and also if they had any kind of issues.
Right.
We do a poll every year for the last 4 years. 4 years with Essence magazine, which is like the number one magazine for black women.
Yes.
We do a Power the Sister Vote survey on what black women want from their president or Congress or elected officials, and then what their issues are. And we do during Women's History Month. We bring together black women delegations from across the country, but a priority in the South and other states too, but primarily the South. They come to Washington. We release a annual report we've done for 5 years that really utilizes the black women's voices. So we find the binders full of smart black women to write about the issues that are important to black women, and develop and to help tell the story, but also have researchers. So Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver, who's one of the baddest researchers I know, who is a senior advisor for us, is our editor-in-chief of that report every year. And it helps us not from an academic standpoint, but from an organizing standpoint, and be able to know, well, what is it, how we develop our agenda. We're able to tweak it, right? So, for instance, for 3 years when we did the Essence poll, affordable healthcare was number one for black women. Yes. But this year, and we release it every September, and so this past September, it shifted. Not that affordable healthcare wasn't extremely important, but based on the climate and what's been going on, the number one issue this year was a concern about hate crimes and racism. And criminal justice and policing reform. And so that whole, and then what we wanted the president to address, the poll said, I said we as a black woman, what do we want the president in the Congress to address? It had to do with protecting our democracy, dealing with immigration reform based on so the kinds of things that are going on, and why there's a sense of urgency at the polls, and why I just left Miami and Atlanta and other places. In Orlando last week, and the lines were long, and people were standing. And even today, as we're getting reports in our National Command Center, there are Obama level voting going on out there. And I don't know, it may be Bush level numbers going. Who knows? But but we're tracking what's going on with the black vote, and it's pretty significant so far. I read that report that you just alluded to.
2018 Black Women Roundtable report, and it's empowering. I must say I absolutely identified myself. In fact, I think I was able to get more clarity of my direction, actually. And yes, it really
that's
did.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll let the listeners know. That's awesome. Yeah.
It really is, because I thought, wow, I can design my own chair and I can pull it up to the table without waiting to be granted, an opportunity
permission, right?
And so I really appreciated that that report. It really did.
Thank you.
It spoke volumes to me. So you kind of answered a bunch of questions all at once, and
sorry.
this now. So no, this is perfect, because we kind of got started just a little bit late with a glitch that we had.
Okay.
So I know that your organization has been engaged in, get out the vote efforts. And we know that all eyes are on younger voters for these elections. We saw, in contrast, 2008, which the year Obama was elected, we saw a huge spike in voter participation among Black millennials. In 2012, that was also repeated, but in 2016, that number decreased by 5%. So can you tell us about Black Youth Vote, the Black Youth Vote program, its mission, and certainly the role it is playing in getting out the vote for these elections leading up to today?
Okay. Yes, I sure can. And as I mentioned, I believe I did, that it's youth led. It's led by, we always have our sometimes college students, but also youth who are not in college drive it and lead it, right? And so what they, for instance, last year, because and this was kind of like a precursor in a way to what we end up seeing in the poll, because the Essence poll does have a good significant number of millennials, right, that they wanted to work on hate crimes, right, last year. After, I think, especially at was this pre-Charlottesville? I think it was pre-Charlottesville. Right. And so they were already like, we need to be working. So they wanted to have conversations about hate crimes, and they had these listening circles in different states, and then in some cases they may have had to deal with bullying, right? But a lot of it was dealing with the racial connotations around hate crimes,
right?
And so this year, because peer-to-peer, it's a peer-to-peer kind of model of getting young people. When I first came to the coalition, I would have been considered a millennial, right? So that's how long I've been there. Right? So I'm not that now, and so we started it with that kind of model in mind of being driven by young people. And so they run, so the parallel to what we're doing, Black Women's Roundtable, of course, we're pushing Black women's leadership, with Black Youth Vote is pushing young leadership who want to get involved civically, try to provide internships for students who may be interested in political science, to come. We try to hire a few young people every year, and they don't have to be students, and then in every state that we have a network, it's like a requirement for that affiliate to have a Black Youth Vote program in their local community. And then we do an annual, we didn't do it this year, but we're going to start back next year. We'll do an annual national civic leadership and organizing training, where we bring young people in from the states and then other places too. But we prioritize we put most of our resources into like 8 states.
Yes.
And then that was like by design, because that's where the most of our, we felt like that's where we had the most longevity and reach and within community several years back. And there's also a Black men and boys component.
Okay.
That is, and with that's kind of mirrors a little bit about what we do at Black Women's Roundtable. They have a Hill Day, training young Black men and boys to speak truth to power with their voice. And that's been kind of a pilot that we've been trying out, that we're going to try to get that to scale. But so those are the two, kind of constituency-based organizing and leadership programs.
That's great, because it sounds like it's more of a long term. I always like stressing to people that, listen, your advocacy does not end when the election ends. In fact, your work has just begun. Even if the candidates that you are for have won in a landslide victory, your work has just begun. And it is our job to educate our representatives in Congress about our issues and concerns. Because after the election, we now have hundreds of newly elected lawmakers that we need to start establishing relationships with. And as constituents, there are a number of things that we can do to bring them into our communities and introduce them to how we live, the issues that we are concerned about, whether it's if you're a business owner, whether it's giving them a tour of your business and meeting your employees, or if you have issues in your community that you need addressed, you can join with your community leaders, your neighbors, your friends, your family, invite them to your community center and have a chat with them. So the work starting tomorrow has just begun. And so I love that your program is so long term. It's about training and getting.
We try.
Yes, no, and that's great, because there's still going to be a lot of work leading into future elections. So
these next 2 or 3 years are going to be pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have the 2020 census, you have the presidential election the same year, and the year after that, redistricting. And so more people are paying attention to what that even means and what that's about.
Right.
I think based on a lot that's been going on these last 2 years, people are getting civics lessons that they're not getting, at least like when I was growing up. And so people are, and so in that having that good voter education, this old fashioned, knowing, what this means to your life and what these people do, and being able to leverage it. It's been playing out in real time why you have a balance of power. It's just so many things of the challenges our country's going through.
Yes.
And I'm hoping people just can, especially our young people who I believe hadn't had a chance to check it out, but I believe they were supposed to be high school students walking out today to go vote. Those over 18. I haven't had a chance to tune in on that because we've been so busy monitoring the states that we have campaigns going. But
that's great.
In this era of Parkland and all of that, I mean, I see young people really stepping in and more young people running for office. And so, and I think that's a good thing.
That's great. That's great.
And save our democracy.
Yeah. So, Melanie, we're going to wrap up this segment of our show. Okay. But I would like to thank you for sharing your time and your expertise. I know today is a very busy day for you and your staff. Thank you so much for giving us time.
Thanks so much. And I look forward to talking with you another time.
Absolutely.
And staying connected. Oh, but I meant to tell you is we're having our national Black Women's Roundtable Summit, women and girls, and we have a whole separate track. March 15th through the 19th. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that at some point. And maybe show up, come to DC.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Melanie. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is Marsha Padilla-Goad with Grassroots Advocacy Radio. We're going on a quick break, and when we return, we will have a conversation with Mr. Jeff Bassino, who's partner of Bassino and Associates, about what the results of the midterm elections could mean for the nation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Would you like your next chapter to be free from fear and angst? Tune in to Your Next Chapter Radio, navigating through life's transitions with Shelley Ryan the fourth Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Shelley's contagious enthusiasm guides you through life's transitions deliberately, mindfully, and funnily. For Your Next Chapter coaching or to listen, visit YourNextChapterCoaching.com or call 602-617-8351. Next.
Our angels and animals are always working for and around us. Darcy Pariso knew from an early age she felt this incredible presence that was confirmed for her in a Reiki Level 1 course. From then on, she has honed her skills and dedicated her talents to providing answers, inspiration, and tools for people to move past limiting blocks and past traumas to truly live a life of happiness. For more information about working with Darcy, visit darcypariso.com.
A word of caution: if you prefer the status quo and you are not interested in improving every aspect of your life, this book will trigger the shift out of you. The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens is available now. Author Colette Steffen brings the powerful knowledge and life-changing energy and empowerment from the radio airwaves to the pages of her new book. To get your copy in paperback or ebook, visit thetruthisfunny.com today.
Interested in deepening your spiritual practice? The School for Esoteric Studies offers online training to spiritual seekers from all paths of life and individual coaching. Our courses synthesize Eastern and Western spiritual traditions based on meditation, study, and service applied to everyday life. To learn more about our courses and services, please visit www.esotericstudies.net.
Tune in to The Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
Would you like assistance on your soul's journey? We invite you to explore the new Alchemy of the Goddesses Center located in Auburn, Washington, a sacred space for healing sessions, classes, crystals, books, and many other tools to assist you in reaching your full divine potential. Working together with compassion and love. Find out more about the new center, visit alchemyofthegoddesses.com. That's alchemyofthegoddesses.com.
We're back on Grassroots Advocacy Radio. I'm your host, Marsha Padilla-Goad. It's midterm election day in our nation, and Americans are casting their votes for the candidates that they want to represent them at the national, state, and local levels. So in the first three segments of our show, we talked about get out the vote efforts to increase voter participation. So now we're going to shift our focus to what's next? What does a victory for either party could mean for the nation? When we wake up tomorrow, we would probably have an idea of the results for the majority of races. Because some of them were so close in the polls, we're probably looking at another several days for some of them. But we'll pretty much have an idea of which party controls the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate. So joining us for this segment of our show is Mr. Jeff Bassino. Jeff is the founder and partner of Bassino & Associates, a lobbying and consulting firm based in Virginia. He was appointed to regulatory boards by President Bill Clinton and President George W. Bush. Jeff, welcome to Grassroots Advocacy Radio.
Thank you, Marsha. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. And I think this is an absolutely perfect way to end today's show because, with all of the several months of get out the votes and all of these close races, a lot of coverage in the media, polls are telling us one thing. And so really we won't know anything until the results come in. So do you have your crystal ball ready?
Actually, I do have my crystal ball ready. It's a little different than many of the other crystal balls I've seen.
That is awesome.
And obviously, this is probably one of the most watched, if not the most watched, midterm election we've had in a while. Some of the numbers I've seen have early voting numbers that actually exceed what we had during 2016, which was a presidential race, which I don't think we've ever seen before. So people are excited. People are energized. People are getting out to vote, which is important. Obviously, one of my favorite things to tell people is if you don't want to vote, don't complain. So, but as you look at these races, I was just reading a story about 15, 20 minutes ago that said that both parties, Democrats and Republicans, should be happy tonight. Democrats because it's projected they will take back the House of Representatives, and Republicans because it's projected that they will win or keep the Senate. I see it a little differently, and I see it a little differently based on the fact that if you look at momentum, and as a big sports fan, I'm a believer in momentum. I think, frankly, lately the momentum favored the Democrats. And while I see them, having what I call a Baskin-Robbins night, picking up 31 seats to go with 31 flavors of Baskin-Robbins. So I see them picking up 31 seats in the House, which would then, of course, mean that they control the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And in the Senate, which a lot of people see as staying in Republican hands, either 51-49 or 52-48. I see it a little different. I see the late momentum. And I see, frankly, Claire McCaskill in Missouri managing to hold on to her seat, which allows the Democrats to get to, believe it or not, 50-50.
Yeah.
Which we, frankly, have not seen since the year 2000, after the Bush-Gore contested election.
Yeah.
And what it does is it entails, at least then, it entailed a bit of a power-sharing agreement between, at that time, Senator Trent Lott and Senator Tom Daschle. This year it would obviously mean that Senator Chuck Schumer and Senator Mitch McConnell would have to be able to reach an agreement. And what they did back then was they split the committees right down the middle. They split in terms of funding, in terms of members, in terms of staffing. They left the chairman as a Republican because George W. Bush was in the White House. And obviously it's a lot different in this city than it was 18 years ago. So I'm not sure if that would happen with that much ease and cordiality in today's world. But that's kind of the model that they used. Obviously, in a contested vote on the floor of the Senate, Vice President Mike Pence would probably be wearing out that path between the White House and Capitol Hill on Pennsylvania Avenue, casting deciding votes. But I really see a shot that the Democrats, I don't really see much of a chance they can take back the Senate. I don't see it getting 51-49 in their favor. But then again, in 2016, no one predicted Donald Trump would be president. So stranger things have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you see as, what should we look for should the Democrats take control of the House? What are some of the issues we would see reappear?
Well, I think the first issue, I'd like to talk about the issue that I would like not to see reappear.
Okay.
And that is the discussion that you hear some Democrats having about impeaching the president.
Yes.
And look, whether you like or don't like the president, I talk often about, we went about 120 years between impeachments before Bill Clinton was impeached.
Right.
And now it seems like that's the default position if I don't agree with you. For George W. Bush, it was, we didn't find weapons of mass destruction, we got to impeach him. For Barack Obama, it's, we had issues with healthcare, we got to impeach him. Look, impeachment is a fairly serious charge that should be reserved for very serious matters. Just because you don't agree with someone, just because you don't like somebody, is no reason to impeach him. Now, what will happen, though, if the Democrats take back the House, is there will be probably much more oversight into administration business, probably into the president's personal life in terms of business. You've got the emoluments clause, which a lot of members are wanting to concentrate on, which means you can't take money from foreign countries as he does when ambassadors stay at his hotel here in D.C. So I think the Democrats will be much more energized in terms of investigations.
Yeah.
The goal, I would hope, would be that you don't get bogged down in investigations, and instead also understand that as an elected member of Congress, your district or your state sent you there to do a job. And while I would not be bold enough to predict that a Democratic House and a Republican Senate would mean they will start to get along starting on January 3rd of next year, I do hope that when these things happen, it forces both parties, frankly, to look at each other and say, look, we were sent here to do something.
Yep.
Let's try to do something. So Democrats winning the House obviously increases the numbers of outside investigations and things such as that. From a policy standpoint, you still really have obviously a divided government if the Republicans hold the Senate under most scenarios. If the Republicans are in the Senate and the Democrats have the House, you still have a divided government there, and then you've got a Republican in the White House. So I don't want to say that I don't know if I see anything getting done, but it obviously becomes much tougher. I mean, I could make the argument that if the Republicans couldn't get anything done when they had the House, the Senate, and the White House, it becomes even tougher when you include the Democrats owning the House. Now, the other thing that does come up is obviously when you get to these kind of closer breakdowns and situations like this, you get a lot of members who have, you get the more moderate members who have a little more authority and control. I mean, in the House for the past couple of years, you've seen the Freedom Caucus, a fairly right-wing group led by Jim Jordan and Meadows, who have kind of held the more moderate wing of the Republican Party hostage in terms of not allowing them to pass things without their approval.
Right.
You may see the same type of thing if the Democrats are in control. In other words, you may see a group of Democrats get together and say, you know what, we don't like that. We're blue dog Democrats as we had in the past, or we're left-wing Democrats as you can see now. And so the whole process is going to take a while to shake out even after everyone gets sworn in January. Because again, when everything's this close,
right,
everybody feels like they're the kingmaker.
Yeah. So,
and if my good.
No, go ahead. I'm going to have you finish your thought.
If my prediction of 50-50 comes true, you really have a situation in the Senate where members who are more moderate, and I'm looking at Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Democrat, I'm looking at Republicans, Susan Collins from Maine, and Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Those are the ones that would be targets for the other party to try and see if they could swing them over, as the Democrats did in 2000 when Senator Harlan Specter from Pennsylvania switched from Republican to a Democrat.
Yes.
So, when you get in a situation where it's 50-50, then all of a sudden everybody starts to think, you know what, I could have a role here. And it's basically who can negotiate the best deal for themselves.
Right. So we'll see. And I know we're going to wrap up today's show. Jeff, thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise with our listeners. I would like to, if you all would like to contact me, you can visit my website at dynamicsinpublicaffairs.com. A recording of this show will be archived and available for download on the website as well. I would like to thank our guests for sharing their time and expertise with us today. And I would also like to thank you all for tuning in. Please join me every first Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Grassroots Advocacy Radio, conversations to educate, empower, and engage with Marsha Padilla-Goad. Tune in the first Tuesday of every month at 12 p.m. Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com, as Marsha will continue to educate you on grassroots advocacy and the vital role it plays in the legislative process. For more information or to listen to past shows, visit dynamicsinpublicaffairs.com. That's dynamicsinpublicaffairs.com. See you next time.